Okay.
All right. Well.
All right. So
tell us how it works.
Sure. So we have we're using tabletop setup here in order to create an online space to play Genesis while the game is expanding and growing and cards are getting to the different communities. But so right now we're just going to run through what you need to know to play, how the game works, and run through a couple of rounds of just a tutorial based with Raph. So first, let's look at our champions. So we can highlight our champion using the Alt key. It can zoom in, and we'll see a bunch of different information presented on the card. You as the player are the champion, whoever one you pick. There are currently 12, and there are 12 more coming with Origins. So top left corner, you have your red, blue, and green bars. Red being your health total that you start with. You can go over that total. You can overheal in this game. Blue is your aura, which is your magical or use of magic ability. It is a starting number that you start with, and it goes down. There are very few ways of actually gaining more aura in the game, so that's something to be considered when you're doing that.
You cannot overheal, right? Is that what you said?
You can overheal, so you can go above your
right.
You can go above your starting total.
All right.
Same with your summons. Your summons can overheal. And in Genesis, one of the key distinctions is that it is health, not toughness. The health is actually remaining, so it goes down to if your health goes down, it stays. There's not a floating health. There's not a toughness. All right. So energy is our green bar. That bar banner at the top tells us how much we can reduce our energy costs by. So energy in this game is a resource that is your deck. So you have a 50 card deck that represents your energy resource. So whereas aura, the blue, is a number that ticks down, energy is the physical cards in the deck that begin ticking down as you use your energy costs. The goal of this is to create a play space where you start at your best and strongest, and as the game progresses, you get weaker and more tired, and you have less resources, so it gets down to a sort of a tense moment of who's going to win or who gets the last attack in.
All right.
Middle box, that is an awareness. Most cards have an awareness if it is a summon creature or if it is a champion. Even spells have an awareness. And that is the area or the spaces on the board, because we are playing on a grid and we're actually moving around in 3D space, we have to be able to know what can we hit. So in other games where we choose to attack or move to attack, we just do that. In this case, we might not have something to attack because it may not be in our awareness. So every card that requires that awareness is going to have a box similar to this in different shapes and forms.
All right, so Raha can see the next two and the one, the three in the front and the one like a little bit more in front.
Forward.
Right.
Yeah. So what we would call this would be a front, as you mentioned, which is exactly right, front,
okay.
And then a far forward.
Okay.
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 On our side, we have our deck building requirements, which we can talk about at the end, or if we want to do a tutorial about deck building, we can definitely do that as a separate piece. Those are the colors, and that's very similar to other games where you're building with colors, and we'll talk about that later. The last big piece with the champion is that the champion itself in the arena has their own abilities, and those abilities are along the bottom in the scroll-like text, and they have three parts. The first part is the black box, which indicates the speed at which an ability can be played. In this game, we have Swift and we have Action are the two speeds. Those are similar to instant speed and sorcery speed in other games.
In other games. in one other game, okay.
In one other game, I guess.
No one's ever played.
I think Flesh and Blood, I think, has. Is it? I'm not sure.
I've never played that game.
Right. But anyway, those are the speed at
All
which we do. The next part is the actual attack, the actual name of the ability. So, for example, Raha here has range attack 2 as her top ability, and the second one is area range attack 2. So keywords here are range and area. Those come in when we're dealing with what we are attacking.
They're pretty self-explanatory.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we also have the reminder text there if we need to.
Okay.
And then the last part there is the cost. The white box will always be our cost. That gets paid before we play the ability, just as a sort of a semantics of how we actually do the actual costing. So you will exert, Raha will exert, and then the 2 attack will go onto the stack.
Okay.
And then we can discuss how those things get responded to when we get into a game. Okay?
All right.
The last key there about Raha is that her second ability does cost her an energy, but even though it's on her card, it's still reduced by her same green banner number that's at the top.
Okay.
So it'd be 2 cards off the top of her deck to use that ability.
So the green, so everything is reduced by 1, costs 3, so it costs basically 2. 2 cards from your deck. Okay.
Okay. I want to hop over just to show an example of the other champion. So obviously different colors, much different awareness, only the 1 forward spot. More aura, no energy reduction, and both of her abilities are action speed, so a much slower champion as far as when they can respond.
All right.
Heavy attack 1, okay, it's just a simple 1 damage to what's in front, but the fireball ability is really the strength of this champion, because fireball allows you to do 2 damage anywhere in the arena.
For 5.
So that becomes for 5 aura and exert, yes. Okay.
For 5 aura, okay. So this one does not use energy.
Does not use energy on the card. Doesn't mean you can't have energy in the deck. It's just on her ability herself.
I see. All right. So far, so good.
Okay. So once we know what our champions are, in this case we have 2, we need to know how do we actually play. So playing the game consists of rounds, and then each round, depending on how many...
Can you give us a little background of the game? Like, who are we? What are we doing? What's our goal?
So basically, we have gained magical ability in the world of Jalara, which is basically the Genesis world that we have. Okay. And we are now champions of the different cities and houses that we sort of come from, and we are meant to use that inherited ability to, fight for our cities.
Okay.
In what's called the arena.
The other player is a bad person that we have to annihilate in order to
Yeah, so different competing family houses are competing. There's a war happening, political intrigue. There's a whole bunch of backstory and lore that a lot of the fans do enjoy reading through as well.
Okay.
And that's all that can be found on the website.
All right. I'll put all the info so people can look them up. All right. So, but this is us. So if I play a Raha deck, I am Raha.
You are Raha. If you play Idris, then you are Idris.
It's kind of like my name, but with like missing letters, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
Okay. So to play the game, we wanted to start with rounds. So there's a round means that you and I both take a turn. If we're just the champions. If we have summons on the board, then there are more turns. Okay. But what this card is basically going to lay out for us is what happens, right? Beginning of the round, everything will be exerted after the last round. So we remove those exert tokens. We will both draw at the same time.
Okay.
1 card. Okay. The first player, depending on the role from the start of the game, will always be the first player.
Okay.
Okay. They will always be the active player. So they will start the round by choosing either their champion, or if they have a summon at this point in the game, which one to activate. Okay. Both summons and champions will follow the same turn. It just depends on what they can do in that turn. So a simple explanation, so a summon will go to its move phase, and it either moves, and you can rotate. There's an optional rotate, which is 90 degrees in this game.
Okay.
Or it can stay.
Okay, so for so exert, you just put a token on the card to say that it's been activated. Because if you turn it 90 degrees, let's just say tap it, you just rotate it, so that doesn't actually do what you want it to do. It doesn't actually do what you want it to do.
Right, and it doesn't actually signify that that's gone. Yeah. It's just so we use a token. Usually a starter deck will come with some tokens. We have tokens coming down from the Kickstarter with the symbols on them, everything like this, that allows you to say that this thing has done its turn. Okay. So move phase is the first part of the turn. You can move once or twice. So that's what these arrows are showing. So you have move, rotate, move, rotate, but they go in different directions. So if you move once, optional rotate, you go to your main phase. And main phase is where you can play as many abilities as you want. Now, if you're a summon, the summon can only play what is on its card. Okay, and we'll show a summon when we... do you want to show a summon now, or do you want to...
No, let's go for, all right, let's go through this, and then I'll ask my questions. So I'm pretty sure I understand, but just make sure that I'm not missing anything. I'm not asking stupid questions. All right.
So we move once, rotate, main phase. Okay. Now, if that summon needs to move twice, it skips the main phase and goes to its end phase. Now, the big difference between main and end is that main phase, you can only play action abilities. So as we saw with Idris, both of her abilities are action speed. You can only play those in your main phase. Whereas at the end phase, you can play your swift abilities. Okay, so certain champions may be able to move twice and still do something, whereas others may be only to move once and do something. Same thing goes for a summon. The summons still follow these same turn breakdown, but again, the summon cannot play any cards from your hand. It can only play what is on the card.
All right, let's see.
So for a champion, depending on what's in your hand, you may be forced to move once if you want to do a card or use a card that's in your hand.
All right, I see.
Right? So
if you move twice, you can only use the swift abilities.
Correct. Now, one of the key things that gets missed, I'll bring it up.
Yeah, just one thing. So the first box is move, rotate, and then move, rotate, right? You can't.
Right.
You can't do that. It's not just the rotate part that has the arrow under it.
Right. That is a great question, because yes, you would move, so physically move the card one space ahead, and then you would rotate 90 degrees whatever direction. If you didn't move first and just rotated, that would still count as a move.
Okay. Well, basically, you can only move forward, like moving towards the direction you're facing.
Moving in any direction. You can move in any direction as long as something doesn't stop you from doing that.
All right, that's okay. That's something that I would not have intuitively found, because it would be like, if you rotate, it'd be like, okay, well, I'll turn around, I go that way, then I turn around, I go that way. All right, so you can go anywhere you want.
You can move to the side, you can move backwards.
Okay, cool. All right.
And then when you move, then you can rotate.
I got it. Okay.
Now, the only reason you wouldn't be able to move is if something is in that space beside you, that space is considered occupied, and movement cannot go through occupied spaces.
I got it. Okay.
One thing that does get missed very often is that the idea that, instant speed, swift abilities in this game, not all of them cost you an exert. So if you have a swift ability that costs aura or energy or even life, you can use that even when you're exerted. But it's only the swift abilities that allow you to do that.
Okay. And but only once a turn.
Whenever you want to. You can play a swift ability. Let's say something comes in and attacks, you use a swift ability.
Let's say Raha. Oh yeah, but then exert, so
she can only use her exert ability once, but if she has another attack in her hand, right, or ability in her hand, she can always use that, even if it's if it's swift, even if she's exerted, as long as it's a swift ability.
Okay, and as long as the attack doesn't require it to exert, or maybe that's not something on the cards, but okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
If it basically if it doesn't say exert as a cost and it's swift, you can just use it.
Correct.
Okay.
You can just use it when. Yeah.
Got it.
The other thing that gets missed sometimes when we're going through this card is that the end phase here happens on everything's turn, and it means that it opens up a window for response. So you can act on the end phase of something's turn. And those situations come up quite regularly where maybe you have a summon or you have an attack. You know you're going first the next round. You may want to fire off an attack to hit something so it doesn't hit you back. And those situations we can come across when we get into gameplay.
How do we, whose turn is it? So there's one person who's going to start every turn, but does that person like move everything they have first? How does it work? How do you alternate?
So this is where the chess-like aspect comes into this game. So when you move one of your things, then I will get a turn and I'll move one of my things.
All right, now we.
Then you move and then I move.
I see.
Now we're back and forth. Okay.
And when everything is moved, or you don't want to move anything else, that's the end of the round. Well,
so there's a lot of times where. There's a lot of times where, you may want to, this little 1/1 summon might not do anything, so maybe you just exert it, and then you force your opponent to have to move something first.
Okay.
And then you can go in for a kill or something. Okay. So that's where the tactics come in with the movement.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Basically, after everything is done and said, everything is exerted, that's where the end of round comes in. Sometimes there's things that happen at end of round with triggers. Other times you may have held on to an attack to fire off. That is your last chance to use any swift abilities before the next round begins.
Okay.
And that's sort of the last time to actually do something in a round. Once that end of round goes off the stack, we start the next round, unexert everything, we each draw a card.
And you start with how many cards?
So you draw 5 cards in your hand before the start of the game, and then you draw 1 at the beginning of each round. So you would have, to start the game, you'd have 6 cards.
Okay. Are there any other alternate way to win or lose? Like if you deplete your deck, is there any...
Right. So the main way is your goal is to try to get your opponent's health down to 0.
Okay.
But if in that process your deck goes to 0 and you have no cards in your deck, that is an automatic loss for you, and the game ends at that point. So there is no last turn, last ditch efforts. You're done.
Okay, if you launch your last attack and cost you the rest of your deck, you just lose before you actually fire arrow.
You would lose, because you pay your cost before the actual attack resolves.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, got it.
Do you want to look at a couple cards? Let's look at a couple. Let's do that.
See. All right.
So I'll pull out. I'm just gonna pull out a couple. There's a summon. Here's a basic technique. And then let's see. Where's a spell? Here's a spell.
All right. Start with the summon. The summon. It's a little tired, little cat. Hate cats, but it's okay. Do you have a dog? Do you have a dog summon?
We have dogs, we have lots of dogs.
Oh, sweet. I like this game.
So we have, again, same basic layout. We have a 4 health at the top corner.
Okay.
Right, so that's its health. If it gets attacked with 1, it goes to 3. It stays at 3. If I heal it by 4, it goes to 8. It stays at 8.
So 1 damage is 1 life.
Correct.
And heal 1 is up 1 life.
Up 1 life, yeah.
Okay.
And then here we have the abilities on this card. The top one is for your summons, is what we call in this game beckoning. And most summons are beckoned at action speed. So you have to be in your main phase to beckon a summon.
So it costs 8 auras and doesn't exert. So if you have 2, you can play 2. No,
Yep.
no. Oh,
Yep. You can play as many summons
okay.
as you want, unless that summon, like you said, had an exert cost. Then you would have to go to your end phase.
Okay.
Now, with the summons, when it comes from your hand into the board, that is called placement.
Okay.
And placement doesn't care if the spot is occupied by something else, or if there's, or if the spot is empty. So you could place 2 summons on top of each other on your turn, or you could place your summon on top of another person's champion. It just comes into the board and appears on that spot. So that's called placement.
And you place it where? Like by your champion, or?
Yeah. So placement will occur on our compass points, what we call adjacent. So north, south, east, and west, from wherever, and it always comes in facing the same direction that your champion is facing. So if your champion is rotated, then your summon will come in rotated.
Okay, so far I'm not. Oh yeah, rotated. Yeah, okay, rotated. Yeah, okay, cool.
Yep.
You got it.
So if you're, yeah, okay. And then once that summon it comes in, it has summoning sickness, or it comes in exerted for us. It's doesn't come in tap, but just basically comes in exerted. So we place a token on it right away.
Okay.
And the next round, it would be able to do its heavy attack when a player activated this summon.
Cool. Okay. So heavy attack,
I'll throw
3 damage right in front of it.
Right.
And if it's on the same spot as something else, you cannot attack it. Or can it?
It can only attack what's in front of it.
And not on the same spot. Like, for example, I'm here, and
yes.
Let's say, where are you? You're here. Let's say you're here.
No. Yes, correct. Because you're technically on the same spot. You're not in that summon's awareness.
I knew cats were idiots. So they can't attack. So basically, my cat cannot attack you.
No. It could, if I was here, then yes.
That's a stupid cat. I knew it. Okay. Got it.
All right. So just to throw, this is one of the iconic summons from the game, right? So this is a much different, much bigger summon, a lot more abilities.
25.
Flight and aerial.
Okay. Holy range attack 6. So range attack is probably range. It's anywhere on the
range.
Anywhere on the map, right?
So range is just giving you the ability to hit anything if it has aerial. So you'll see here that on the aerial text, you can only use range abilities on it.
Okay. Oh, okay. Any retribution can move to a spot even if it's occupied. Okay. The only attack abilities that can target are range attack abilities.
Okay. So this just shows you, you have a lowly little tiger, and we have much smaller summons in the game as well. And this is one of our big sort of iconic summons, Angel of Retribution. In this game, flight is a movement mechanic, and aerial is a damage mechanic. So flight allows you, as you mentioned, move on to something that's occupied. It basically flies over top.
Okay.
Aerial gives it, some of us consider it to be, sort of like a hexproof. Half of a hexproof, right? Only range attacks can target it. So our little tiger here doesn't have a range attack,
obviously,
so it can't hit it.
Can't reach the angel because it's in the air. Okay.
Right. But there are other things that do have a range attack. And also...
So holy range attack, I can hit anything on the map. Like, doesn't matter if it flies, if it doesn't fly, or...
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Okay. And then... Specifically, the reason I bring this up is because it references attack abilities. So some abilities aren't attacks. Some of them are casts.
And then, if there is a fireball, doesn't matter if they fly or not.
Right. Fireball doesn't matter if because it's not an attack. It's a fireball.
Okay. It's like, the actual fireball. Okay.
Yeah.
I just made it up, but
it's actually thing.
There's actual fireball right there. Okay, cool.
Yeah. There are other attacks that have cast and do fire damage and stuff.
Okay.
So so that's summons. Okay, so here we have just a simple technique. It's just a basic attack, 1 damage. You can see it has a cost of 3. you can play as many of these as you want, as long as your deck allows you to play them.
Okay.
Okay, and
Swift,
then so
basic
that's
attack. So why is there a little box at the top?
so that box tells me that wherever my champion is placed, I can do that left hook in that same spot. So this technique has to hit something that's in that in that forward spot.
In left hook's awareness. Okay, I see.
Right.
It's not like. At first I would think, since my hero has an awareness, like let's say 4, like 2 in the front, and like the front plus
Right.
I would be able to, yeah, but that makes sense also. I can't not left hook something that's 2
Far
blocks
away,
away.
yes.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. And then we have just an example of a cast. So you can see there's a cast ability there. This one has an exert, so you can only use one of these in a turn. But you have a much bigger awareness. And in this case, the reason I chose this one is we have the text that says, you deal 4 earth damage to everything on 2 different spots. So if we have the word everything in the game, it means literally that, everything. Doesn't matter if it has
Even yours.
aerial, it doesn't matter if it has, if it's mine, if it's yours, everything.
Okay.
But you choose the 2 spots when you play this. Okay?
Okay. All right.
So we want to jump
Yeah.
into a game?
Sure. How do you represent the life and all the stuff on the creatures, on the summons?
So on the summons, what I like to do is, again, it would be depending on who you're playing against, but I usually choose that the dice will represent the current health. So if I had more health, I would, if it had 5, whatever, if it deals damage, I would mark the dice down, the damage coming off the dice. If it's hasn't taken any damage, I wouldn't use any dice until we need to.
Okay.
And then for your health, for the champion's health, on TTS we have a red and we have blue counters here. So if you were Raha, you would move it up to 22, and then if you were, it'd be 95, because that would
25.
be your starting. And if you were Idris, you would be the other way, right?
Okay, got it. All right, I got it. All right, yeah, let's move to let's try a game.